Hi, my name is Beth Hiley here for BoardGameGeek, and I'm here with Christopher Batalis from Everything Epic Games, and you've brought us Rambo, the board game with one of the most iconic first-player tokens I think you could possibly get in board gamedom,
right.
Which was Rambo's iconic serrated knife, machete. Not down with
That's
my
right.
knife and go, oh, there we go. How appropriate.
That's right. It's a knife. It's a knife.
That's right. To quote another movie franchise we won't mention. Christopher, why don't you give us a little backstory on because this particular game covers I believe the second and the third movie, correct?
So the Rambo trilogy collection is First Blood, which is its own solo game experience. And then the Rambo, the board game core game, has both the second movie, Rambo First Blood Part 2, and Rambo 3. So it has basically, it encompasses, so the trilogy collection encompasses basically the entire, cult classic favorite movie trilogy from the original days of action and adventure.
I think also worth mentioning out the gate too that this is cooperative for depending on which flavor you're playing.
Absolutely, yeah. So First Blood is a fully solo game. It's a narrative experience. It introduces you to kind of some of the mechanics and gets you kind of into the story and follows, but also diverts from the path of the original film, First Blood, based on the book, First Blood. And it's kind of that original Rambo iconic kind of storyline. It has almost a 50-page narrative experience within it. And it plays in the book. It has kind of these map tiles that you play in the book itself. So it's easy setup and you can just quickly jump right in as a solo player. Rambo, the core game itself there, has a bunch of different tiles and takes you through basically Vietnam and Afghanistan and kind of through that whole mythos of what Rambo is. So it really allows you to play the films, but you really get to kind of do whatever you want. There's a lot of scenes and things that happen off the film and off the screen, and there's new characters that we introduce into the universe because, of course, most of the time in the films, Rambo's by himself for a lot of the time. He does have a couple of friends and stuff, but we need to bring some people along, add in some unique different characters so it's more diverse and allows for a really cool cooperative experience. It's a very cooperative game.
Well, why don't you take us through, and I'll let you pick sort of if there's a scenario that might be a good way to introduce people to a couple of the mechanics. I know one thing that was notable in this game is that there was no dice rolling at all, that this is very, very plan-based.
Yes, it is. It's extremely cooperative, extremely plan-based. It looks right there. You have the first mission all set up right there. So as you can see, you basically have your own player hero board. If you see you got Rambo there, he's kind of got 4 little squares on his board. Each one of those is a stance. So in a lot of kind of these cool war games and hero games, when you're playing a soldier, you kind of take different stances in order to tactically make moves in some video games and different board games. Here, at the beginning of your turn, you're going to choose a stance. So if you need to move quickly and maybe potentially go and attack the enemy, you're going to pick potentially beat feet. If you want to maybe meld into the background and be a lot more stealthy, you might pick meld, for instance, because it reduces your alert. That's that -2 with the little alert symbol. Speaking of alert, the game is all about stealth and being very tactical. So it's not all a giant, just huge shoot 'em up. Every mission is not kill all enemies. Every mission has very unique objectives and is again, you can sometimes complete missions without ever even firing a bullet or hurting anyone. So it's really all about how you tactically make all of your moves and figure out the best way to get to that objective. So as you can see, you have that alert bar there on the right. It usually begins every mission at the bottom at green. When you're at green, you are fully invisible. This is one of those cool elements about the films, that Rambo is one of the greatest stealth tacticians of all time. He's a Green Beret, super special forces. Basically what you call hell, he calls home. War is his home, right? So the idea is that he can be right in front of you and you don't see him because he knows the terrain better than anybody else. The same goes for all of the other teammates. All of the other characters are really great at stealth. So if you're in green, you're fully invisible, even if you're right next to an enemy. If you're in the yellow, however, you are invisible if you are in cover. So as you look at the spaces on the map, you're going to see that there are these kind of dotted outline spaces. Those are cover spaces. And when you're in cover, you become invisible. Same goes with orange, unless they're in your area, which is a 4x4 square. So again, it's very tactical based on the spaces you're in. And of course, if you're in red, they can see you wherever you are. You've made too much noise. You're probably blasting away, blowing things up, 80s action movie style. So they know where you are and they're coming for you, right? So that's just kind of a quick gist of what's on the board, right? So you have health on that board as well. Whenever you fill up that health bar and you take that much damage, instead of just dying, because of course, Rambo doesn't die, he's basically immortal. Every time you take that much damage, you take a wound. And it's a unique mechanic where you take a wound, which covers up a stance. And you have to make the meaningful choice as to which stance to remove from the game, almost potentially permanently, if you can never heal that wound, which is very, very rare to heal a wound. So now you're choosing what stance you can no longer use. And whenever you lose all of your stances, or if the mission says otherwise, your character would have been killed, which of course means that you and the other players lose the game. So failure is not an option in Rambo the board game. The only way to win a mission is to, of course, survive through it and complete the objectives to the best of your ability. Speaking of objectives, again, the game is 1 to 4 players. So you can play it true solo, where you just pick one hero, and we have some modifiers in order to balance the game and go into the mission. Or you can play multiple heroes. Each player can play one hero or multiple heroes if they so choose, and they go right on into the mission. Basically, each mission, again, has these different objectives and different enemy types. So as you're going through the mission, and every mission in this huge campaign book in the core game, there's 20 different missions, which can play out differently every time. That book is very big. It's one of the big size books that fills up the whole box, basically. And each mission is different and unique and has different map setups, and each map file is different. And as you're exploring the map, you'll be going through those cards right there that look like fog. Those are fog of war cards. As you're exploring the map, you're going to try to figure out what's in there, because you don't know what's in this terrain as you explore it. Even though you're home there, you don't know where the enemy is, or where traps might be, or where hidden items or hidden things that you need or objectives might be. But you may know where specific points of interest are. As you can see on that fog of war card that just popped up, when you trigger it by moving adjacent to an area, you will trigger whatever it says on the card, the little story, and you will spawn whatever enemies it says on that card in the spaces it shows matching the map. So it's very, very simple and intuitive. When you get next to one of those areas, which is a 4x4 box on a tile, that's when you'll spawn that fog of war card and figure out what happens next. Every round, you're also going to have threat. There could be crazy things in the jungle. They could be specific enemies lurking around. The threat cards in the game are generated differently depending on what mission you're in, and they come in sets. So each set could be like jungle themed, or some can be elite enemy themed and whatnot. Each player gets one of these, and it will spawn potentially some strange effect that could be dependent on your current alert level. So as you can see, this one is faltering leadership. And at the top, it says, if you're in red alert level, this happens. And if you're not, it doesn't. And so on and so forth. And then the bottom thing always happens. And these things, they keep you on your toes, and they're kind of like bad stuff that happens. Some of them can be good. Randomly, you might find something that's actually quite helpful, like a morale boost of some sort that helps you on your way. But again, these are things that kind of keep you pushing forward. So what do you do in the game? What do you do in Rambo the board game? How could you possibly play an 80s action movie with no dice? Is that possible? So we worked really, really hard for years coming up with these mechanics and trying to refine them so that you can actually play Rambo the board game with no dice. Why? Rambo doesn't miss. When he shoots at something, he doesn't miss. When he attacks something, he always hits. So that's a very important distinction. Like, that's kind of the idea and the feel of what 80s and 90s, like big explosion action movies are like. They don't miss when they go to shoot at you. So the idea here is when you spend an action to attack something, you'll have particular type of gear. So Rambo's knife there, for instance, has a range. It has a number of targets on it. So that range there is A for adjacent, so you have to be adjacent to someone. It can hit one target max, it does 3 damage, and it generates an alert. So it brings your alert from green up. However, if you're already in green, the weapon has +1 damage and -1 alert, so you can start to deal extra damage and not deal any sound. So it's very tactical. It's all about, being Rambo and being Rambo's knife. Now, guns, on the other hand, have different ranges. So potentially if you pick, let's say, Kobau's AKM or the military pistol, either one's fine. Kobau's AKM there has one range, meaning you can fire any one area from where your character is over. So that's a 4x4 area. The one you're in doesn't count as one, that's a 0, and then 1 away. So you can shoot up to 1 away if you have a 1 range. And then it has 2 targets. You actually, since it's a machine gun, you can actually shoot 2 things with it with 1 action. And then it does 2 damage and has 2 alert because it makes a lot of noise. So the idea here is that you're tactically choosing what you want to attack, when it comes up, if you even want to, depending on the situation. So again, it's very, very tactical. So why don't we take a little bit of a move and spawn something and see what happens. And we'll get into what the tactics cards come into next. So let's say we're activating Rambo, we're going to beat feet, and we're going to run from the bottom right-hand corner of the map into one of these Fog of War cards. So beat feet on it, I believe, will move you up to potentially 4, right? So, and Rambo potentially even has some combat boots that give him bonus movement. But let's say he moves 3 up to that adjacent part of that area. And as soon as you move 3 up adjacent to the area, you will spawn that Fog of War card. So move 3 to the left, to the left there. Yep, and as soon as you get there, that actually triggers the Fog of War because you're looking into that area. So as soon as we would spawn that, we would read what it says, and then we would do what it says on the card. So that particular one has a little bit of a story, and that will spawn a special POI, a point of interest, which is a cool watchtower. Now, I don't want to spoil all of the parts of the first mission, but you would put this watchtower overlay on the map, and when you basically walk into that watchtower, you can trigger the POI, and it has a special effect. So there's lots of little things like that you'll find throughout the game, unique trigger points and unique things that you can interact with. But when you find enemies, so let's just trigger the next card, for instance, and potentially spawn some enemies onto the map and see what they potentially do. So that one looks like it has a couple of enemies there. So you can put a couple of enemy miniatures out, and we'll just kind of get an idea for what does combat look like here if we go to fight them. So we'll spawn 2 enemies onto the map, and let's say Rambo can see them from there, right? So on their card, you'll see that they have some unique abilities. So they're very similar to how the players work, the enemy cards. You can pick any one. The Scout would be fine. We can take a look at the Scout card, which is at the top there, if you can reach it. That Scout card there has basically all of the stats on it that you need. Very similar to the enemy, to the hero's card. They have their own range. They have how many targets they attack, damage, how much they move, how much resistance they have. That's just plain damage mitigation, and how much health it is to defeat them. They also have a special ability, and they have a specific activation AI behavior. So when enemies would activate, if that's the activation group, you would just go down the line, 1, 2, 3, 4, doing those things very simply, just to keep track of what they would be doing. So very easy to figure out what to do with them. Now, tactically, you may want to try to take out a group before they ever get to activate. Sometimes that's a smart tactic. Sometimes not going after them is better and going toward the objective. It all depends on the state of the game at the time. So if Rambo wanted to attack one of those enemies, he would spend an action, and since he only has a knife, he would have to be adjacent. If he was adjacent, he would deal that Scout 4 damage, and that would automatically kill him and take him off the map in one shot, because it's Rambo, right? But again, he can't do that if he's not adjacent, because he doesn't have a gun. But as you go through the game, you'll be unlocking brand new gear, brand new tactics cards as you play. Now, here's the really cool thing about the game. The tactics cards are extremely unique. When you have these weird situations and things that come up, you'll use the tactics cards. Tactics cards are multi-purpose, dual-purpose cards that allow you to take unique actions based on that character specifically. Each tactics deck is unique for that character. So let's take a look at a couple of random Rambo tactics cards, for instance. So I can go over kind of what some of those tactics cards in the tactics deck look like. So for instance, Gorilla Trap is a very unique one. So this is where Rambo actually gets to place a trap. Also notice this is Rambo 13 of 13. This is one of the last ones you unlock because it's very unique and kind of a more of a challenging one. But basically you place a trap marker down, and when an enemy goes in there, it's a persistent effect. When an enemy moves through that trap space, they take 5 damage and it ignores resistance. Very unique type of thing, very Rambo. He places traps, he kind of sets the enemies up into that way. It also has 3 icons on the bottom. Those are Valor. Valor can be basically, you can, instead of using that card for the ability on it, you can discard it and gain Valor tokens. Valor allows you to raise the damage of your weapon so you can just get above what you might need to hit them or deal damage to them. It also can potentially give you defense. So if you're taking too much damage, you can drop Valor to stop damage. So again, it's kind of that little mitigation factor. Berserk, of course. This is like iconic Rambo, right? So Rambo always goes berserk. He screams, he shoots, he's crazy. He's fun, right? This one particularly gains you an alert. So actually is a little bit of a drawback. But he allows you to make a separate attack on each adjacent enemy with 1 weapon, and then you suffer a damage for each enemy you hit. So he basically allows you to do lots of extra attacks for free during that turn. Or again, if you don't want to use that ability, you can discard it for the Valor. So it has a lot of unique tactical points where you can choose how best to use your abilities, your actions, your movement. And again, every time you play the mission, it's going to feel a little bit different depending on how you play it and what heroes you play. Rambo is all about, shooting and going crazy and doing interesting stealth things, whereas Troutman has a lot of leadership abilities, for instance, where Troutman can kind of inspire the other players and kind of, help them get bonuses or help their alert come down and things like that. So this one, for instance, when you basically to gain Valor, it doesn't count towards your 1 tactics card per turn. So you can actually play that card. Normally you can only play 1 a turn. This one kind of breaks those rules and lets you do some bonuses, which is really neat. And Kobao is also very stealthy, very unique. She can kind of get in and out of locations. She's really good at combat. Again, each character is different. She's from the area, so she knows it very, very well. So again, each one is very unique to the different players.
Christopher, we've got about 5 to 6 minutes left, and I would love to if we could switch gears slightly and talk a little bit about production of this game, because one of the things I'm always fascinated with that games that have an IP is one, like, what was the process of going to getting this IP? Was there an idea for the game first, and then sort of, oh man, if we could get Rambo, that would be the perfect marriage, or the other way around?
I think the big thing is that, I've grown up with Rambo all my life. I've been a gigantic fan since I was a little kid. It's something that's a fond memory of me and my father going to the movies and watching these crazy action movies together and just loving that kind of that bonding moment and playing with army guys as a kid. That's kind of why they're little green army guys. We kind of try to make it
a particular shade of green too.
Yeah. We want you to feel like you're kind of a kid, bringing back those memories, but in this kind of crazy tactical game. And I just said, I love Rambo. I want to do it so it feels like you're really playing Rambo and different characters in this universe. And I said, just such a huge fan of this IP, we had to find a way to get it. So it was extremely difficult. It was very challenging undertaking to get it and to create the actual game itself, and how to basically make it without it feeling, kind of like just a pasted-on theme of a game. We wanted you to really feel like you were in that game, which is kind of the major challenge for IP games and for licensed games. It's a big challenge. So, when we got that license, we wanted to make sure the artwork and the characters, they were all done uniquely for the game. We wanted to match that feel. One of the interesting challenges is we weren't able to use the likenesses of a lot of characters, except for, of course, Sylvester Stallone and Richard Crenna, who played Troutman and stuff like that. All of the other characters, basically the entire game, are unique characters that we made for the game because we didn't have the ability to use those likenesses, which again is a very unique and interesting challenge, but it was a great opportunity because it allowed us to kind of use our imaginations and kind of direct the art toward something that I think came out really, really cool and has a very unique and nice aesthetic to it. It's not just all screen grabs. We have some screen grabs and stuff in there, but it's kind of like a mixed media, bringing you into that theme. So again, the game is all about passion and love for this product and this world.
You actually beat me to my next question, which was, what were some of the decisions to decide whether you were going to use screen grabs versus wanting to use art? But you had already answered that, which is something that also, comes part and parcel with working within a license and within the rules that you're allowed to do. I'm not sure how many people who are watching are aware that there is a very delicate balance there, and then, of course, how that affects gameplay down the line as well. There was a cheeky comment in the chat earlier saying, will there be an M60 cardboard machine gun for an expansion?
Well, there's more than one M60 in the game. And there's also that really goofy M60 that was on one of the covers back in the day. That was basically an M60 machine gun with the RPG rocket launcher on the end, which of course physically and in real life doesn't actually work. But we just for the fans, for myself, and for fun, there's actually the card for that M60 RPG, which of course, again, it's just fantasy land of a card, but it's in the game. Because again, we love it. Of course, there's the knife, of course, and in the Rambo solo game, it's the Rambo 1 knife. So this is the Rambo 2 knife, and the Rambo 1 knife is actually in the solo game. So, who knows what the future holds for Rambo. We actually had a whole unique expansion called First Blood Flashbacks, which was based on the original feel of Vietnam and the original Baker team. It was something that didn't quite reach it in the funding goal for the original Kickstarter, but it's something that we have and we would love to do in the future. Very unique characters, kind of that reminiscent from the original lore of Rambo's past. So again, we love Rambo. We're huge fans, and we hope that the other huge fans of Rambo who are also board gamers can jump into this and really play it. Again, it's not one of those games that's a slapped-on theme that you might find, for $20 at Target, so to speak. It's something that, we put a lot of passion and love into and a lot of heart into, and really, made those missions very unique and made the characters unique and tried to write the best possible story with the best mechanics we could for Rambo.
I hope you get what was the best compliment from a viewer that we had on another IP licensed game that said that in playtesting, someone who had never interacted with the original IP before then went out and watched it. So that would be my hope for you as well. And I will admit, I'm kind of that target person in that I actually haven't seen Rambo before, not any of them. So to sit and from my perspective and listen to an interview being like, that's a really quality game, and I don't have that passion of the license behind it. I'm only viewing it as on merits of the rules and the interactions. So I think you guys got a winner on your hands.
Thank you very much. We have a few other licensed games. We have a game on Kickstarter right now, for instance, The Librarians, the board game, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you've ever seen the Librarians TV show. Very cool. It's a kind of that interesting balance, taking an IP, making it into a board game, making it something that you can see the passion for that fandom is in there, but also making it so that people who've never seen the movie or the TV show can also love playing that game. That's a difficult and challenging balance. So you have to put those tactics and those things in there and all of those strategic points so people can feel like there's an amazing game inside of here. And so they can have that imagination. And then they want to go out and watch the movie, or it reminds them of the movie. They haven't seen it in 20 years and they really want to go back. Actually, that happened to me with Battlestar Galactica, for instance. I had never seen the new TV series. I knew what Battlestar was, but when I played the game for the first time, I was like, this is cool. I want to see this show now, right? I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I wonder how many people saw Firefly because they played Firefly, the board game, potentially. I'm sure there's quite a few people. I've never seen this. I want to see it. That I hope that happens here. With people who miss Rambo. There's 5 movies now. I mean, it's basically an iconic action movie. So it's a lot of fun. That's the point. It's all about having fun.
And Christopher, in our final minute here, you had already given us some sneak peeks that you've got librarians coming up in the pipeworks, but is there anything else from Everything Epic Games that you wanted to highlight before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. We have the Vampire the Masquerade Blood Feud, the mega board game. It's the first mega board game. It's basically taking a mega game and a live action role playing game and putting it into one. It's a 4 to 32 player game, as a matter of fact. 4 to 32 players.
32.
Yeah. It's extremely epic. As I said, you have the librarians. It's on Kickstarter right now, live, ready to go. It's a 1 to 4 player, basically a non-collectible card game with dice. It's a lot of fun, very cool, story-based, family-friendly type of a game, very fun. And we have something really exciting coming up. We have something called Upzone, and it is a pop-up wargaming and RPG terrain system that will also be used for board games as well. So it's basically if you have a miniatures game or war game and you like cool terrain, but let's say you don't know how to build it or what to do with it, or you don't want to travel it if you have very expensive terrain, this is actually a pop-up book style terrain for games. So it kind of brings a 3D element to the table. So we got a lot of really cool and epic stuff coming up for Everything Epic. And we're really excited to get back to reality with people. Board gaming is all about bringing people together. It's all about bringing people in front of one another where they can enjoy each other's company, getting away from screens and really just having a lot of fun with one another and socializing. And I can't wait to be back together with everybody in the new upcoming convention season and see all you folks and all you amazing people out there and all the fans at the conventions and just play games with people in person. It's been great online, but I can't wait to come back and play games with everybody again, hopefully in 2021, very soon.
Well, I'm sure you speak for us all, and that's a great place to wrap up this. If you guys are interested in checking this out, this is Rambo, the board game, which is part of actually a trilogy pack, including a solo version as well, which is published by Everything Epic Games. And Christopher, thank you again.
Thank you very much.